So in this video, I'll be talking about the endocrine system part 3 on the series Hormones, Homeostasis, and Reproduction. In the previous video, I talked about the isolates of Langerhans and its purpose in homeostasis within the body. Today, in this video, I'll be talking about the thyroid gland and the pituitary gland and its function in homeostasis of the body. If you're here just for the IB questions, check the description for where you have to skip to. So first of all, where is the thyroid gland? So it's situated within your neck area. And what is its purpose? Why do we have it? So its purpose is it produces something called thyroxin. And thyroxin is part of your metabolism and your growth in your body. Without thyroxin, you can't metabolize or grow. Especially when you're a kid, the growth is super important. There's a standard definition of what thyroxin does in your body. So to visually explain what exactly happens, I'll use this diagram. So your thyroid gland releases or produces thyroxin at a daily basis, consistently. But we know what it does. So what happens if your body can't make it? So if your body can't make it, what's going to happen? So in a child, if thyroxin can't be produced, it's going to lead to something called scretinism. And scretinism is basically when you develop to become short in stature, like the fellow on the right of this picture, as opposed to a normal developed child. So you're short in stature, and not only are you physically short in stature, but you also don't develop properly mentally. So people that have scretinism due to lack of thyroxin production often have mental retardation. So it affects them both physically and mentally, and this is why you can see this hormone is so crucial in the development of a child. But what happens in an adult, which we'll see in the next image? So again, the thyroid gland is right there, and just like in a kid, the thyroid gland will make thyroxin on a daily basis. But my question is, what will happen if in an adult it can't make thyroxin? So the adult is already grown. It can't grow anymore physically. It's mentally developed already. Its brain is developed. So what will happen if it suddenly can't make thyroxin? Well, there's still consequences. And this condition, by the way, of not being able to produce thyroxin is called hypothyroidism. And hypothyroidism means it can be split in this word. To understand this word, you can split it into two parts. The hypo refers to low. In my previous video, I kind of explained this concept already, so you can check that out. And thyroidism, because in the previous video we learned about hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, and that's high blood sugar. This time we learned hypo, which means low. Hypo means low, and thyroidism is basically the activity of the thyroid. So if there's low activity of the thyroid, it means low thyroxin levels. And the consequence of this in adult is typically obesity or becoming fat, because remember, thyroxin is not only for growth and development, but also for metabolism. So in an adult, you can't metabolize anymore, which means whatever food you eat can't be broken down effectively, and so it gets stored as fat, which means you get fatter in an adult sense. But the opposite condition also exists, by the name of hyperthyroidism, which again is the opposite thing. This time, instead of having hypo, which means low, we have hyper, which means high. So it means you have an overactivity. You have so much thyroxine being produced. And this kind of does the opposite effect. So you get skinny because everything you eat gets broken down. So you get skinnier. And also you have a higher mental um, capacity. So you think faster, all those things. Because again, thyroxine is part of your brain and development of your brain as well. So if you have hypothyroidism, you can also think faster as opposed to someone who has hypothyroidism. Now, a condition that happens in both of these, both hypo and hyperthyroidism, is called goiter. And it looks like this. Basically, it looks like your neck swells up a lot, but in fact what it is your thyroid gland that swells up. It can be either extreme or not that extreme. And it's basically when this part swells up. And this part swells up when you have hypo or hyperthyroidism, when you have too much of a metabolism and very low of a metabolism. And how can you fix this? How can you make sure that as a kid you grow properly, both mentally and physically, and as an adult you don't get goiter or fat or anything like that? What you can do is you can make sure you, in your diet, the only thing you can do is with your diet. You can make sure that you include within your diet iodine. Iodine is the thing that is essential to making sure you have a healthy thyroid. Iodine is basically the medicine of the thyroid gland. If your thyroid gland consistently gets iodine, it will be healthy and it won't start forming this goiter, this disease. And in a child, you develop properly because it will function properly and hence be able to make thyroxine. Because think about it, if you're sick, you can't make anything happen. That's the same here. In the thyroid gland, if it gets the right medicine, it's healthy, it will make thyroxine effectively. And so that's the same. And where can you find iodine? So you can typically find it in dairy foods, like milk, cheese, whatever, and in fish. Not necessarily a blobfish, but any kind of fish. And it will, yeah, and that's where you can get sufficient amount of iodine levels. Now, we just learned that what thyroxine does in your body. Now, how can your body make sure you don't get hypo or hyperthyroidism? How can it make sure that your level is enough? Your body's not making too much, like too much of it. Because if you get too much, your body needs to stop it, right? This technique is a recurring theme in biology. In the previous video, we also talked about how negative feedback is important in maintaining your blood glucose level. Well, it's also important here. And to reiterate, negative feedback, a good way to remember it is for example, in thyroxine, say your body is making too much of it, your body will notice something is wrong, something is negative, and it will feed it back to your body and tell it that something is negative so that your body can fix it. So as soon as you make too much thyroxine, your body will undergo negative feedback to fix it. Let's see a diagram to illustrate that. So right here you can see, this is again your thyroid gland and your pituitary gland. And you can see they're actually connected through certain messaging channels. So your pituitary gland can communicate with your thyroid gland. So let's see why this is important in maintaining homeostasis. So, say your body is making thyroxine. Let's say 5 is the normal level. If you have 5 at any given time, that's normal. So that's all good. So your pituitary gland, essentially what it does is it is the thing telling your thyroid gland to make thyroxine. So it's basically the big boss. It's the telling the worker, okay, make thyroxine, make thyroxine, make one more, make one more. That's how it's working. But if you're making a lot, let's say you're making too much, because obviously the pituitary gland doesn't keep count. Like you're not gonna keep count the whole time. So let's say you end up making 4 more than you should have. Then what will happen is negative feedback. So your body will know something is negative. You've got to tell the body now so it can fix it. So what happens is, in fact, this thyroxine, these extra ones, will come up to the pituitary gland and sort of let it know, look, we have 4 too much. We have 4 too much. We got to stop. And then you'll be like, okay, it received the negative feedback, and now it's going to not tell the thyroid gland to make any more. So it keeps at 5. Understand? And basically, if there's too little, obviously there's no extras to come back to tell it. So what's going to happen? It's just going to remain and and just wait until there is enough. It'll just wait until it makes 5. But if there's too much, the extra ones will go back to tell it to stop. And that's how you'll make sure that you won't have all these extra ones. That's the negative feedback mechanism. The last important thing here is that above the pituitary gland is the hypothalamus. And just like the pituitary gland tells the thyroid gland to do things, the hypothalamus can sometimes tell the pituitary gland to do certain things. Because the hypothalamus is special in the sense that it can, it's in touch with the environment around you. So when you're walking outside, it knows, your brain knows whether it's summer or winter. And depending on what season it is, your body will metabolize differently. So this thing can do its own thing. Pituitary gland can make its own thing, but sometimes the hypothalamus will intervene to say, okay, now it's summer, we got to increase the metabolism, or we got to decrease the metabolism if it's winter. So it can basically intervene when the environmental conditions change. That's why it's important for that. Now, lastly, we come here to the idea of control of body temperature. So just like we above talked about how you control the thyroxin levels, now we'll move on to talk about how you control your body temperature. These two are kind of linked, and you'll see why. So when you think about normal body temperature, what do you think of? So when I think of normal body temperature, I always like to think it's about 36 to 37. But my question for you is, what happens when it's really hot outside and your body tends to go up to 38 or 39? Or if it's super cold outside and you're basically freezing, so you're going down to like 34. What is your body going to do to make sure it gets back to its normal level? Because remember, when it goes above or below this value, the enzymes in your body can't work effectively and you could die. So it's crucial that it gets back to this. So your body needs to undergo homeostasis to get it back here. So it does that again. See, the concept negative feedback pops up again. It does that same thing through negative feedback. The body will notice, oh crap, it went way too high, we got to bring it back. It's going to take that negative feedback, tell it to the body so it can fix it. Now let's have a visual diagram to explain how this looks like. So say the temperature goes up to 39, then the skin receptors can feel that like your body is too warm, and it will then send a signal through your nervous system to your hypothalamus, because you only have a hypothalamus in your brain, it's part of your nervous system. So it will send this message, be like, oh damn, it's really high. Let's tell the brain. So it's going to tell the brain that it's really high. That's a negative feedback. Remember, the skin receptors received the fact that it received the negative information. It's too high or too low. Now it will carry on this negative information to the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus will tell the organs to fix it through various ways. There's many ways to fix this kind of issue, which I'll talk about next. And how this links to the thyroxin idea is that thyroxin is one way to control your body temperature, and you'll see now. So how does the body respond to high or low temperatures? Number 1, thyroxin. So remember, thyroxin is all about metabolism. When you have extra thyroxin, you'll metabolize more. So when your brain will notice, oh, it's really hot, because of the skin receptors sending it a signal, remember? It sent it a signal that's really hot. And remember, your hypothalamus can talk to the pituitary gland. Remember, this can talk to the pituitary gland to talk to this. So then your hypothalamus will talk to the pituitary gland to tell the thyroid gland to make more. And now that it makes more, it means that it will metabolize more. And if it metabolizes more, your body temperature will rise. So that is your response when the body temperature is low. If you're very cold, your hypothalamus will tell your pituitary gland, which will tell your thyroid gland to make more thyroxin, which will increase your body temperature. The opposite thing happens when you have a super high body temperature and you want to get lower. So say you're 39, then your brain will realize you're cold. It will tell the pituitary gland not to make any more, and that will decrease your body temperature. So that's one mechanism. There are 4 important ways to maintain your body temperature. The second one here, let's see if this will work. That's a blur. That's a blur. So let's use this image. Yeah, the second way is this way. Let's keep it here. So the second way is through your body expelling heat throughout the skin. So and the technique is actually called vasodilation. So say it's really, really warm. Your these arteries right here will become, they will dilate, which means they will become wider. And if they become wider, it means more blood can flow. And if more blood can flow, more can enter. If there's more blood here, that means more will enter here, and more will get close to your skin, and then radiate off the heat. And in the other condition, when it's really cold, this artery right here will get thin. That means there will be less blood, and less blood will be able to enter and lose heat by radiation. And why does it lose heat by radiation? You're like, why does it just release heat? And remember the idea of concentration gradient. If it's kind of colder outside than it is in your skin, heat will just try and even it out and balance it. So some heat will go from the hotter area to the colder area. That's how it radiates. So depending on whether it's warm or cold, it will dilate or not. And the fancy name for that is when the artery gets wider is vasodilation. And that's when it's warm, so more blood can radiate off heat. But if it's cold, it will do vasoconstriction. And vasoconstriction is when it gets thinner. So this area will just get thinner, so there's less blood to lose heat, basically. So that's the only concept there. So number 3, this might be one that we all know of, sweating. So your skin will have this sweat glands, and these sweat glands will basically release out sweat to your skin. And this so when it's really hot, you sweat. You don't sweat when it's cold, and you'll see why now. Because when it's really hot, if you've ever tried putting water on your skin, just from like a sponge or anything, putting water on your skin and then blowing on it or letting wind blow on it, you'll notice you're super cold. That's why when you're wet outside and you're in the wind, you feel extremely cold, and that's one mechanism of how you cool down your body. It sweats so that there's water on your skin, and when wind blows on it or anything like that, you'll cool down. Because if you compare without and with water, when wind blows on you, you'll notice that when there's water on you, it's much colder. So that's one way in which your body responds to high temperature. Not only that though, it does that, but also when it's really hot, this will evaporate from your skin. And when the water evaporates from your skin, it will bring heat with it. So the water will essentially take away heat from your body. So in summary, 2 ways. First of all, it cools down your skin because it will be on it and wind will cool it down, or the water can evaporate with some heat, and that way it will cool you down. But when you're cold, obviously, this is not a good way to get warm again. So I guess 3 only works for when you're too warm. Last one, 4. This again can work both ways. It's called muscular activity. So when you're really warm, you tend to be tired and you don't want to move much, right? So that's kind of how your body allows you to cool down. When you're really warm, you're just like, oh, I just want to chill and do nothing. Yeah, that's precisely what happens. It reduces your muscular activity. So your body tends to be tired and not want to do anything because it wants to stay cool. But when you're really cold, have you ever noticed how you start shivering? Yeah, shivering is basically the muscles trying to get warm. They're just shaking for a brief second to try and heat up, that's all. Because have you ever noticed when you're cold and you start moving around and stuff, you get warmer? Yeah, that's an automatic way. Shivering is like an automatic way to heat you up. So you can see all of these ways kind of regulate your body's temperature. 3, on the other hand, kind of only works in response to high temperature when you're really warm to bring it down. But yeah, they all work. Okay, so now let's go down to some IB questions. I hope everything there made sense. If you have questions, just remember to ask and I'll explain. So let's go to some IB questions. These are all multiple choice questions, actually taken from the IB with no particular difficulty. They're all really difficult. They all could be easy, it's just random. So what helps to directly regulate body temperature in humans? So let's see the options. Melatonin secreted by the pineal gland. Nothing I talked about just now mentioned melatonin. Melatonin is not relevant to temperature. It's in fact the hormone involved in sleep. So that's a hormone that allows you to sleep, so that's not relevant. Thyroxin secreted by the thyroid gland. Yeah, we just saw that thyroxin secreted by the thyroid gland helps to increase your body temperature or decrease it if it's not produced. So that one could be correct, absolutely. Glucagon secreted by alpha and beta cells, not alpha cells of the pancreas. Yeah, this is not relevant either. This is to do with blood glucose level. If you watch my previous video, you'll understand that this is not relevant. And lastly, exocrine secretions by the pancreas. Again, the pancreas, I didn't talk about that at all. The pancreas is to do with blood glucose level. So these two are kind of ways to maintain blood glucose level, not temperature. So absolutely, and this one is for sleep. So absolutely the answer must be B. Next, how does the hypothalamus respond to a very high body temperature? So let's see the options. A very high body temperature, what can it do? Increase muscle contraction. Let's see if that makes sense. When you're really warm, would you want to move more? No, you wouldn't. So your body would actually decrease muscle activity. So that's incorrect. Stops receiving sensory input. When you're, that wouldn't make sense because your body needs information the whole time, and if it stops receiving information, that wouldn't help at all. Causing dilation of skin. Remember, I talked about the arteries dilating or constricting depending on what happens. So for a high body temperature, your body would try to dilate. It would try to get thicker so that more blood, it will try to have a more wider gap so that more blood can flow close to your skin to radiate off heat. So I guess this could make sense, causing dilation of skin because now there's more blood to radiate off heat, which will cool you down. Lastly, slows the heart rate. No, you wouldn't want to slow your heart rate because slowing your heart rate means, say you're doing a lot of exercise, would it be useful, because now you have a higher body temperature, would it be useful to slow down your heart rate? No, because you need all that blood and oxygen to be able to keep living. So slowing down the heart rate into a high body temperature wouldn't be especially useful. So yes, hence this one would be the correct answer. What happens when human body temperature rises during exercise? Let's see this one. The arterioles move closer to your skin. So when you're doing exercise, obviously your body's heating up, so it wants to cool down, right? So it's got to find a way to do homeostasis to cool down your body. I wouldn't say your arteries move closer to your skin because they can't physically move, they're stuck, but they can dilate. So this would be incorrect because they can't move. They would dilate, which will allow more heat to radiate off, so that's incorrect. The hypothalamus decreases cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is basically breaking down stuff to be able to live. So that would not be a smart thing to do because then you can't live, can't decrease cell respiration. The skin capillaries close up. If it closes up, it means that no blood can flow there, which is not what you want. You want blood to flow so that it can radiate. So closing it up would be the opposite thing that we want to happen. Well, lastly, remember I said there were two effects of cooling down with heat from the skins. One being the water being on the skin, so wind can blow onto it and cool you down. The other being water can evaporate to bring heat with it. So this is this answer. The water from the sweat evaporates to cool the body, so it brings heat with it. So this is the correct answer. So the last one here, how does the body respond to an increase in body temperature? Oh yeah, this is the I, 1, 2, and 3. So when the body's temperature is extremely warm, let's see would it do vasoconstriction of skin arterioles. We know that it wants to dilate the arteriole so that more blood can flow and more heat can radiate off. So vasoconstriction would mean less heat can radiate off because now there's less blood flow. So this one would be incorrect. Can't be 1. How about 2? You only shiver when you're cold. So when you have a high body temperature, shivering would not work. That would mean it would increase muscle activity, which would make you even warmer. So shivering is not a smart answer. Last one, vasodilation of skin arterioles. Yeah, this is what we said. Vasodilation is the opposite of vasoconstriction. So vasodilation causes your arterioles to open up, allowing more blood to flow, which means more blood can radiate off close to your skin. So the only answer correct here is 3. So let's see. Yeah, D. D allows for only 3. So D is the correct answer. So I hope everyone understood something in this video. Hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, just ask in the comments and I'll try my best to answer you.